Lomo Lounge is open for another open for another day.
One more day.
More day.
It's weird
one
that we have a
fine-
bar that we only open once a week. It's crazy. It's not really good for business, but hey, it is what it is.
No, and especially when like half the time we don't let people in.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
we say no.
Mm-hmm.
But we're turning the light on. We're here to talk about another movie on today's After the Movies. I am Aaron, alongside my co-host Jimmy the Sword Lombardo.
What's
reporting for
going
duty.
on? What's going on, everybody?
I am getting a phone call. We're here for another movie. We already said that.
It's usually why they tune into the podcast is because we watched a movie.
How do we pick this thing back up? How do we fix this?
You just did right there. Roll into it.
It's Jimmy week.
It's Jimmy week.
And we have another one that we watched that you chose on Netflix.
A little bit better
film.
than the At the Movies.
I would agree. So pray tell, we watched a classic horror story.
Mm-hmm.
And what drew you to this? You gave me a couple options, but what piqued your interest in this?
Well, just to be honest with you, I'm going to be completely transparent. Whenever I pick a movie for At the Movies, I try to make it whichever one's trending, so that way we can get some traction on the podcast. So that's really the only reason. No other reason. Well, when I figured that you would like the horror, I figured that you would like it. So
you were correct. I did like this film. I have some weird thoughts on it, but I did like it. This was directed by Robert DeFeo. You might have to help me out with the pronunciations here. Robert DeFeo and Paolo Stripoli.
Perfect.
And written by, I'm not even going to run through the names here. Written by 5 different screenwriters, which
Lucio
a lot of the times
Bassana, Roberto DeFeo, and Apollo Stripoli again.
Does not always fare well for a movie when you've got 5 different writers in the room.
I think they should have 10. I think that every movie should have at least 10 or so writers at a minimum. I
think The Shining would have been a better movie if 9 other people were telling Stanley Kubrick what was good or bad about his script.
Yeah, I think just one person telling him that would have been good.
So the lounge is open. Before we get into the film, you are notably not drinking right now. However, if you were to be ordering a beverage at the Lomo Lounge for this film, what would you pair it with?
I've been seeing a lot of Manhattans lately, so I figured I'd just go for the old classic, the old fashioned's cousin, the Manhattan. Nice bourbon Manhattan.
A classic cocktail for a classic horror story.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not much of a wine drinker. Wouldn't typically buy it for myself, but my brother, who does not drink, won a raffle at the local cat show.
There's a lot to unpack there.
A loaded sentence. So I have some Chardonnay today, in a glass that is just a fancy red colored wine glass. And so it's free drink. And I wanted to have some. It's been a long week. It's been a long week and a half of work, and so I was actually looking forward to enjoying a nice 5 p.m. cocktail, or beverage. So
nothing wrong with that, man.
So I'm letting loose.
Yeah, I haven't drank in 1 month and a week.
Congrats. How you feeling?
I'm great.
People are gonna think you're an alcoholic because you're like, it's been 1 month and 17 days since a beverage has touched my lips. And I'm like, good job. How are you feeling today?
Great. I definitely want a beer. I definitely want something. That's for sure. Might crack.
Now, yeah, do you think that you will eventually return to and just maybe try to cut down on the drinking in order to, because this wasn't I'm an alcoholic decision. This is actually a decision that I've also fallen into, where lately I've just not felt like drinking heavily. And I've been making the decision to drink more.
It's mostly
water.
Just when you realize how many calories you drink in a weekend when you drink. It was kind of my reason to be let's pull it back a little bit, because You know, even though you're drinking light beer, you can pack, 10 or 12 of those away, and that's 1,200 plus calories. So
Definitely, definitely. All right, well, enough boozy talk. Let's get into today's movie because it's a weird and interesting one. This came to me. I was so via our last after the movies, or maybe it was at the movies when we talked about this. Regardless, I was so excited that you made this an option, and I almost felt bad because, as you said, I'm the horror guy, and I was obviously going to probably pick this.
yeah, you
over
know what's
Gunpowder
crazy is
Milkshake.
I just picked the movie that you would pick, so I kind of just wasted an opportunity to pick a movie.
Well, I wouldn't have picked this, but here's the thing. I had a family gathering like the day before we recorded, and out of all of the people in the world, Jess's grandpa recommended this movie to me. He really enjoyed it. They watch a lot of Netflix. He really enjoyed it. It had been on my radar. I saw the trailer and thought it looked interesting. I saw that it was getting mixed reviews, but that usually doesn't put me off. So let's just bust into it.
I can see
What
why
did you?
I can see why it gets some mixed reviews.
Yeah, this is a certain type of movie that I would lump in with a couple of other films I've seen. That I would say my vague opinion before we get into it would just be like, this is a movie that I think the execution is pretty shoddy, but it's ambitious, it's fun, and overall I enjoyed the film. And I think I am mostly willing to overlook the shoddy execution because I had a good time watching it.
You watched it with the subtitles on, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing. I think people like the reason why I think there's going to be mixed reviews in this because if you watch it dubbed, it's a really bad movie. Like if you it takes away so much from the performance that I can understand if people just watched it dubbed that why they wouldn't like it. So I did kind of like a test. I'd switch it like back and forth, and I could not even watch the movie with it being dubbed. I mean, subtitles were so much more because you can actually get the emotion of the actor and
Right.
everything like that. And just I don't know why, but like dub stuff, just watch the movies with subtitles on. Everybody, I just don't know what else to tell you. I just don't know what else to tell you. If you have the option, watch it with subtitles. I know it sucks, and I know you might not want to read because you're watching a movie, and I get it, but you get more value out of it and you're actually invested into it. And then sitting there on your phone, just paying attention to the audio, you're actually watching the movie. So if you have an opportunity for a foreign film, watch it with the subtitles so you don't lose the actual performance.
I completely agree. It reminds me of another foreign horror film that came to Netflix, The Platform, that you actually turned me on to. Where I had read some things about how bad the dubbed version was, and I watched the version with subs. I thought it was a great movie, genuinely a great movie, better than this one. Not that this one's bad, but I really think The Platform's a great film.
I just don't know if the people that I don't know if the director and the producer or whoever oversees the dubbing of these films. Like, I don't know who actually oversees it. Like, I don't know if it's like a studio that got the rights to show the movie, so they're just like putting I don't know who ends up like overseeing the dubbing, but a lot of times when I watch stuff that's dubbed over, it seems like it's half-assed.
My guess would be, and this is totally uninformed, but my guess would be like the distributor for that country would probably have something to do with who they get to do the dub. So like the American distributor probably got some people to do it. And even some of the translation in this was strange. There is a part where he says and we should not recap plot, but we should recap what the movie's about. There is a part where he is arguing with one of the doctor is arguing with one of the women, and he says, "Who do you think you are, the Ninja Turtles?" And I was like, what a bizarre line. And I don't think that was a translation issue because I don't think that the subtitle guy just didn't go like, "Oh, there's no English word for this. I'll just plug in Ninja Turtles." It was a weird moment, but a classic horror story is just that, a story that is built on a lot of horror movie tropes, which I enjoyed. Subversive, I would say. It definitely kind of leads you into thinking it's one thing and then ends up being something else. It is 5 unrelated, well, five characters, four of which are unrelated, in like a camper traveling cross country.
Which is strange all in itself. I don't know if that's just with me being an American and not really understanding that, but there is no chance that I would ever be like, oh, I'm by myself. Let me get into this RV with 5 other people and hopefully I make it to where I'm going. It was like an Uber
Yeah,
for camp. It was an Uber for like campers. It was so weird. I was like, I don't like
Yeah,
this.
it's like an Uber for like long trips, like
Mhm.
like cross country trips or something, which was. But it is not the weirdest app in the film. I don't know if you watch past the credits at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get into this. It is not the weirdest app featured in the film. Cat's going nuts. I don't know what's going on
It
over
was
here.
the ending, the after credit scene. If anybody missed it, was very interesting to say the least. I guess I don't know if I liked it or hated it, but it was definitely interesting.
That's, I think, a great description of this movie. Is it's a lot of bold decisions, which I appreciate. Some of them I love. Some of them I was like, this doesn't work at all. But I almost, again, it's kind of that thing where it's like better than being a boring movie, because I don't think it's a boring movie.
Yeah, there's a lot
Um,
that I disliked and a lot that I liked. Overall, I think I'm definitely on the fence. I'm like 50-50 on this film, to be honest with you. Since Aaron's telling you about, I'm definitely 50-50 on it. I didn't hate it, but I can't sit here and say that I absolutely loved the film, because there's a lot that I was just like the one scene when they have the American guy. Well, he's not American, but he speaks English
like,
more.
he lives
Yeah.
in America. He speaks English,
Mhm.
which was an interesting decision too for an Italian film to have one character that
Yeah,
speaks English.
which was cool. When they were in the cabin and the scene where like he actually gets captured and they put him into like that like saw trap. The part that like bothered me is like is the doctor, it seemed like he was forcing his girlfriend to watch him get like killed. And I was like, this would never happen. Like nobody would be like, oh my God, I'm watching my significant other just get, oh, they're taking his tongue out. Oh, they're ripping his eyes out. Wow, I'm just so invested in this. It was just like, it was
Yeah.
just like a scene of him like getting tortured and then a scene of both of them looking through the crack. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
what is this? Like, I was like, this is
So-
so weird.
So this camper ends up outside of it, they almost hit a tree, but when they all wake up, they are in like the middle of a field, and there's this very aesthetically pleasing cabin in the middle of the woods, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to get out of there. And increasing spooky cult things happen, including the retelling of a legend that I didn't do any research. I don't know if it's true legend or not, but a legend about a starving village that is visited
Yeah.
by 3 otherworldly beings that they will feed them for in return for a sacrifice, and so they're cutting people's ears off and tongues and eyes. And so basically the twist in this film is that the man that loves horror movies on this trip is making a horror movie. He's making a snuff film. He's filming all of these people getting tortured and killed, and he's trying to make a movie out of it. And so our final girl, Eliza, finds out about this and enacts revenge in the movie's third act.
I really
Um,
enjoyed that part. I really enjoyed the way it ended. I thought that was cool.
So my favorite thing about this is the way it looks. It looked good as hell. Like, at first I thought it was shot on film, and I don't know if that's the case or not, but it had some kind of gritty quality that like an old horror movie would have.
Yeah,
Um,
it might have just
shots
been a
of-
post thing that he did. I don't know how they
yeah,
exactly they filmed it. I didn't see anything when I was looking up some stuff for this film. Not really much out there as far as production.
even the set pieces, the cabin looks gorgeous. And there's this this subcategory of horror called Gio films. I believe I don't know, probably not pronouncing that correctly, but it's Italian horror films from like the 70s and 80s that were kind of like the Italian response to slasher films. And they use a lot of color. And this movie uses there are moments whenever the cabin is being used for killing, there are these like red spotlights that shine throughout the cabin, and everything is lit red. It reminded me of Mandy a little bit.
Yeah,
And I
I can see
really
that.
thought that was like a a cool choice. It made the film interesting to look at. It gave some contrast to it. Um, made those scenes tense. Like you're already tense because somebody's being tortured, but it gives you, you know, something else, some texture, I guess.
It's interesting. I wanted to play a little game with you if you're down.
Yeah, I'm down.
So with you being the horror guy, the trivia section on the IMDb for this tells you what films that this. So it says this film has many elements from other mainstream horror films, and I want to know if I say the film, if you can pick out what scene or what they did to kind of honor
allude
that.
to it.
Yep.
How many movies does it list?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So I have 3 off the bat that I want to know if they're on the list or not, because these
Okay.
are the 3 that appeared to me.
Okay, if those 3 are on there, we'll take them off because then you already kind of. Okay, shoot.
First one, Evil Dead.
Boom, that's the first one on it.
Cabin in the Woods, easy, you know, just easy. Cabin in the Woods. That's the element you need.
Yep.
2, actually, there's 4 that I noticed. 2 would be Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Okay, not on the list.
Okay, and that was just them road trip, a group of
that makes sense.
A group of people road tripping in like a camper. Swing and a miss. Hills Have Eyes.
No, but kind of similar. That one is kind of similar to this other film that's on here. So so for number 3 was Midsummer or Mid. I don't know if I said that right.
Yeah, definitely the cult.
Yeah, the mafia,
especially that dinner scene.
Yep.
Yeah, that dinner scene for sure.
And then the one I think kind of like maybe the Hills Have Eyes vibes, but Wrong Turn.
Yeah, so for me, actually, what it was like, and this I can't remember if this is just in the Hills Have Eyes remake or if this is in the original as well. But when they stumble upon the and maybe this is actually the Wrong Turn thing too. When they stumble upon all of the cars of the people that have already been taken, I think that's a scene from at least the Hills Have Eyes, maybe Wrong Turn as well, where they discover like, oh, we're not the first people to be, you know, abducted here.
Probably the best movie ever is that Hills. What is it? The Hills Have Eyes, but it's the army people.
The Hills have wait, what?
Remember, it was like
Hills Have Eyes too,
but it was just the army or whatever, like going
that yeah, and it's terrible. It's like the
bad
worst.
movie.
It's the worst movie I've
Such
ever
a bad
seen.
movie. Okay, and then your favorite, one of your favorite, Friday the 13th. I didn't pick up on this one, so this is kind of why I wanted to play the game. The other ones I kind of saw, but I didn't really understand. This was the only one where I was like, I don't really get what they're going for here.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's a stretch with the masks, I guess. But like, I don't know. He's not the only.
Masks.
He's not the only.
Yeah, seems like a slasher, just like a reference to a slasher in general. I'd also say the Wicker Man, during that pagan ritual, definitely like having this wooden cocoon kind of that they're setting on fire and stuff.
Wicker Man's a good movie. I forgot about that movie.
Yeah, I liked that this was gruesome, but not particularly disgusting. Like, it doesn't feel like a torture porn movie. Most of the time the camera veers away when something gross is about to happen. You do see some Misery style, some ankle breaking.
I think that has to do with like the Italian, like it being an Italian film. I think they shy away more from like the really like gruesome horror porn type things. If I'm not mistaken, I think culturally that's like not really a thing that they want to see. But they did not shy away from when he was getting his ankles broken. When that happened, I was like, Jesus Christ! I was like, oh man.
And it's the perfect amount of like of cringe, because I cannot do eye stuff, and so I was truly just waiting in anticipation during that scene when they're using. Again, it's like you described it as a saw trap, but it's this like old medieval style. They're cranking the thing, and the spikes are coming down, and you get that shot where it's like, you know, that close to his eye, and
I was really
had
concerned.
Me sweating.
I was really concerned with that because we both historically noted in like in previous pods, me and you both are not eye people. Like when it comes to like eyes, that is not something that. It's like, so when I saw that, I was like, please don't, please don't, please don't, please don't.
Would it be inappropriate for me to say I'm a thigh guy, not an eye guy, baby?
The same. All right.
All right.
Okay.
um, no, I thought that that was good, and then the level of violence at the end of the film is very yeah. So, I guess also another Texas Chainsaw thing, her being held uh in a chair and like forced to have dinner with people or whatever.
I kind of
Her
see.
her
To
you
your
say her
point.
hands being nailed to the chair.
Yeah.
That was rough. Grossed me out.
I kind of see more Texas Chainsaw vibes more than I see Friday the 13th. Like, I definitely agree
I
with
would,
you on that.
yeah, because I would agree, because I think that the whole idea of this is that it's, at the end of the day, you're led to believe that it's this supernatural thing, but it's really just psycho. It's, I mean, they're people. They're not normal people, but they're people. You know,
Mhm.
they're psychopathic people. The shot to the, when you find out that the little girl that they discovered in the cabin, they tried to save her because they thought that she was being held against her will, and then you find out that she is in on it with as part of this family that's making these films. That was high. I was like, this movie was such a ride tonally that it was like giving me whiplash
Yeah.
watching it. When it cuts to them, like him argue, like it's her and her brother who's one of the five in the thing, and they're arguing about, mom said that the movie needs to be like this, and it almost, at the time I was like, this feels so weird, but now looking back on it, it's kind of charming and funny. And her death is definitely funny. She answers the door, and
It's just like, oh
Eliza,
no.
yeah, Eliza just blows this little girl away with a shotgun. Who, to be fair, the little girl's a piece of shit, so you don't really feel empathy or anything. But
I was kind of worried they
um,
could have easily went down the route of, because like at first she wanted to save her, like she was looking for her and wanted to save her, and then I'm glad they did the scene where like she found out that she was with them, because I would have been really upset if they went the route where it's like, oh, she finds her and they're escaping together, and then she kind of like brings her back, and I would have been like, that kind of would have been like, yeah.
yeah, I also think that this could have been. This movie is not okay. So this is kind of what I mean. Is like, this movie is has smart ambitions, but is executed like a dumb guy movie, which I like, which I'm okay with. And I think if it had tried to be more of a smart guy movie, it would have been worse.
Every character
Um,
in this film is dumb, though. Every single character is
for
dumb.
sure, for sure.
Every single one of them.
Every single one. Um, like they could have gone a route where she, is like, I'm better than these people, so I'm not going to exact my revenge. Like, that's the moral high ground at the end of the movie. And I'm glad that they didn't do that.
No,
I'm
we don't
glad that
need
they were
that.
just like, give her time in the sun. People want to see these people get murked, and that's what they do. The meta stuff is, I'm not a fan of movies that are too on the nose, or that kind of wag their finger at the audience. So like, my biggest sticking point with this was the whole like, him explaining that like, this is the content people want to see. You people love seeing people die, and that's why I'm doing this. And then like, she, emerges from the place where they're being kept, and she goes to the beach, and there's all these people that pull out their phones, and it's like super on the nose. And it's like, oh, no one's helping her. They're all just filming her. That stuff is stuff that I could do without. I think it's like very extremely on the nose commentary.
I think I agree with you. I could have done without it, but they're like, and maybe that's why they're on the nose. That is like how things are though these days. Like, and that's the part that I was like, when I saw that, I was like, man, this is kind of a weird way to wrap this thing up, but that is so accurate in like today's society to just like videotape
For
and put it
sure.
on social media and stuff.
I just think it's been done to death. Like, I think a lot
Oh
of
yeah, I don't think it needed to be done. I don't
know,
agree with that at all. It's just it's so
horror
accurate.
movies, like, I never know what the point is of like criticizing the thing that you're doing. Like, it seems like you're trying to wag your finger at the audience, but you're also giving them a horror movie filled with torture and blood. So like,
Yeah,
it's a little high horsey.
I think people
And
are
that's,
so. Oh, you're good. Go ahead.
sorry, no, that's what I'm saying. Is like, I like the idea of this being a dumb movie more than I like the idea of it being a smart one. I think that I like the twists and turns. I think the idea of it had a lot of different elements of different movies. I thought it was subversive enough before that stuff. It was kind of like an old school slasher in the sense that people are kind of going, well, you think they're going to go one by one, but then there's like the ritual knocks off two of them in one go there. I had a good overall. None of this really affected how I felt about the movie, which was like at the end of it for a tight 90-minute movie, I was like, this was fun and unexpected. Didn't all land, but you know what? God bless them for trying because it felt different than Saw and or whatever. We liked Spiral, but it felt different than Saw 10 or Purge 18 or whatever. It did
Yeah.
kind of feel like it was trying to do its own thing, you know?
Yeah, but back to my earlier point or what I was trying to say, do you think that like people when they write a horror film now or they kind of direct one, they feel like they need to make a commentary on society because they want to like not be known like because like here is my thing. If we were to make a movie like that, go ahead and make it dumb and make it fun. And I think that's fine. I don't think you need to like so like you're so concerned about making a movie like that you have to add more to be like, oh, I'm better than this, I did something different. Do you think maybe that's the reason why kind of like we see these extra things or just like breaking the fourth wall type of behavior out of these movies?
I think it's like I think there's a multifaceted answer to that because I think that until recently horror wasn't being taken seriously. Like, um, I think Get Out was nominated for an Academy Award, but I think that's the movie that kind of changed things. And like a movie like Hereditary, Toni Collette absolutely should have been nominated for like Best Actress, but because it was a horror movie, it felt like it didn't get the attention that film types maybe didn't take it so seriously.
Yeah, I agree.
And
with you.
think that horror a lot of times is a reflection of like what is scaring people at the time, which is why Jordan Peele's movies are so smart because he is making these movies that have like a social undercurrent of classism or racism, and it's not so on the nose that like it's not so on the nose that you show it to a conservative type and they go like, I can't believe you're showing me this horror movie about racism. It's just an element of the movie that's there. It's still primarily like a horror film, but it has these undercurrents about the people it's happening to and why it's happening.
Well, we say it a lot too. Like, if you're gonna do something, show it, don't tell it. I think that was like the difference between what works and what doesn't. Like, if you're telling people like right off the like, if you're explaining your like social commentary throughout the film, then I think you failed. Whereas like when you talk about Get Out, when it's like shown to you, it's like it sits better in like the world.
Definitely, I think the part of that movie that works the most for me, that's smartest. This is kind of a weird thing to talk about on this episode, but it's interesting. And to show all of our cards, I am a leftist. You are more centered / maybe non-political leaning one way or the other. And when I say leftist, like I don't mean liberal. I think that like liberals do a lot of the same things conservatives do, and just on the other end. And I think it's very dumb and patronizing. And so I think what's interesting about Get Out is people think that the villains are in that film like liberal people in the traditional sense. Like they're people. It's the guy that taps you on the shoulder and says, I would have voted for Obama a third time. Like it's these people that say things to be the good guy, the nice guy, but they aren't actually
Put
the
any
nice guy or
action
the
to
good
it.
guy.
Yeah, they're actually almost worse sometimes.
For sure.
It almost
So,
makes
and
a
I think
circle. That's my biggest thing. It almost makes a circle sometimes.
Does, and I think that that's what's really smart about that movie, and I think that's why people watching it shouldn't be so quick to I think that's a movie that could open up minds as a film. What I'm getting to this whole spiel is that people haven't taken horror movies seriously for a long time, and that's a movie that outside of being a horror film that is effective and scary and it has a very unique premise. I think it's a movie that could open minds because it doesn't target like a specific group of people as being a problem. It targets the problem itself.
Yeah.
So you could have a wide audience of people watching it and being like, oh, holy shit, this thing's going on, and they don't feel like they're to blame or that the other side's to blame. They just know that this movie's pointing it out.
Yeah.
But regardless, I do think that there is probably a little bit of a need to stand out in terms of horror these days, or to take things a step further. And I don't know if that's necessary, because some of my favorite horror films or comfort films are movies like Friday the 13th Part 4, where it's just a guy with a hockey mask
Yeah.
slashing campers.
I
you
think
know?
that's the biggest thing though, man, is I think now it's like, you know, if you're going to make a film, you want to make like a dumb horror film, don't be afraid to do it. Like take your own spin on it, like tell a story that you want to tell and go all in. You don't need to like add something cuz you feel like you have to, or you have to be like the smart director or the smart writer to be like, "Oh, I'm just a little bit better than the last." And it's like, if you want to make a film, man, just go out and make it. Just make the damn thing.
I agree, and I think it's interesting. I just had this conversation. I'm in the middle of recording an album right now with a group with my band, and we had this discussion last week because we were talking about the difference between singers and vocalists, and how sometimes you get somebody who is not as good at singing as they think they are, and because they try sing like better than they can, or because they try to be technically proficient when they haven't been trained, it sounds worse. Whereas if they were to accept the fact that, oh, I'm not the best singer in the world, but here's my range, here's what I'm good at doing, I'm going to execute this thing in my lane.
Yep.
You know, it works way better for you. And I think the same thing works for a storyteller, a director. I think if you're sitting there racking your brain trying to come up with a way to make your movie the best or completely different from anything else that anyone's ever done before, you're going to lose the plot because it's impossible. There's
Yeah,
nothing that nobody hasn't done before. You should just tell the story you want to tell.
I think the more you sit and think on something, like, and I'm not saying that like all creative things, like you shouldn't put thought in it, because I think everything comes from a place of like, when you're already at the stage and you're making stuff, like everything comes from a place of like long thought, and you've been thinking about it your whole entire life and stuff like that. But the more you sit there, and whether it's like even a painting or a piece of music, a film, whatever it is, the more that you sit there and the more that you mess with it, the more that you try to be the best, you're just taking 6 steps backwards. And that's like one of my biggest things with like everything that we do. Cause I'll be the first to admit that I'm like I'm the most critical of myself and everything I do, which is on my detriment at times. But like trying to work through and be like, no, it's okay. Like it's okay to be like where you're at. You don't have to try to be the best right now. You're on the road, and that's what matters. You're driving down the road. You don't need to be at the finish line because you're just going down the path.
Right.
So,
well, growth is natural. I think it's the difference between putting thought into something and overthinking it, because it's exactly what I did. This podcast is veering off the path, much like the trailer and the film, but I think this is a good discussion to have. Going into writing a full script for the longest time, which I still haven't finished. I'm not like ashamed of it. I have a draft on my computer that I'm still working on, that I'm happy with the plot. I have it, figured out. But for the longest time, I said I'm not going to try to write a full script because have to, or I think I'm getting this metaphor mixed up. I have to edit this. What was I thinking? Where was this going? Growth is natural. What you want to do? Not okay. Back on track. Not the Chardonnay. Let me tell you. This 3 ounces of Chardonnay I'm drinking. Chop this up so I don't sound like a total idiot. But if I would have sat there and tried to come up with a concept that no one had ever approached before, or told a story that no one had ever told, racked my brain for years and years and years, I never would have opened up Faden and started writing. So one day I had a story good enough that I wanted to tell, and I just started. That was the best advice that I could give to anyone, is just simply just starting, putting something on paper. You can figure it out as you go. You can go back and make revisions, but if you never start, you're never going to get to the finish line. So that's probably the biggest thing, is like just not overthinking stories that you want to tell.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to shoot down anybody's ambitions, because it doesn't mean you can't be a great filmmaker, but it's the same thing as in music when they say, like, there's only so many chords. Can't There's no way that you're going to come up with something that doesn't slightly step on something that someone's come up with before. You kind of just have to accept that,
Yeah,
So,
I agree, man.
sorry, it was a long way to a very dumb,
No, I
simple
think we're
point.
good.
But
It was good. It was much needed. I like, I like the extra thought on the podcast. Gives our viewers a little bit of kind of that like extra little cherry on top for us. Like why you need to,
uh,
why you should, you could listen to anybody talk about a classic horror story, but you got to get our kind of like off topic bits. So
it's a heady conversation for somebody who just opened a bottle of wine for the first time in months.
but to wrap things up, if our directing team here, let me get this real quick. Roberto DeFeo and Paulo Strapoli walked into the bar. What are we doing? We serving them or are we cutting them off?
I'm serving them, and I'm not saying stay all night. Uh, I'm not. I recommend this movie. I'm not saying that it's necessarily a good movie, but it's a movie that I liked, and sometimes those are the most fun to watch. This, to me, feels like two other movies that came to mind that were kind of like this.
Mm-hmm.
I remember having a similar reaction to The Hunt, which is now streaming on HBO Max, which is like a bunch of conservatives and liberals hunting each other. Talk about on the nose commentary, and then and then the Belko Experiment, which was just a dumb guys locked in an office building have to kill each other for some unknown reason kind of thing. And it was like, I remember both times watching those movies and just being like, this is so
I think I watched the Belko
dumb.
Project. I think I actually remember watching that. I think I did watch that.
So dumb but so fun, that I don't mind them. I ultimately I enjoy them. And this is the opposite of Room 237.
Yep.
This is, if you're looking for just a Friday night movie with some people that like old school horror movies, it's perfect for you.
It's an easy watch. Give a couple.
I would agree.
Give a couple shout outs here now that we're wrapping up the podcast. Go ahead and follow us at Lomo Media on Twitter. That's going to be the best place to get a hold of us and to find out everything that we have going on. And I want to give a special shout out to our new collaborator and somebody we've been working with for some time, but they just launched their new, or not new, but they're back in action, the What the Film Corps podcast. You find that on Spotify, so go give them some great guys. You got Dylan and James over there doing a great job talking about more newer movies. They just talked about Black Widow. So go give them a follow as well. And shout out to our Patreon member, Jay Irvin. Welcome back to the Patreon. Appreciate that. Appreciate that.
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at Jay Irvin. I'm laughing at the fact that we've had one Patreon subscriber that left for a momentary amount of time and then came back. Good on you, Jay. Thanks for being there, bud. Hopefully we'll get some company for you soon.
And if you would like to join Jay and give him some company in the lone, vast media library that we have only exclusive on our Patreon, there's tiers from 3, 5, 10, and even 15 if you want to get crazy, to be entered into a yearly drawing to be featured in a sketch or a short film, depending on what we have going on that year, if you want to get crazy about it. But if nobody else joins, it looks like Jay's going to win that for next year. So that's exciting.
All right. So we got to figure out what we're watching next week. And I have two, unless I know that Gunpowder Milkshake is still on the table.
My
so
computer froze, so I don't know.
However, I would also like to extend two more options.
Nope. There we go.
Are we good? Do I need to repeat?
No, I think we're good.
Okay.
That's weird.
Do two more options for you. One of them is a Fear Street special, where we talk about the 3 Fear Street films, run a little bit longer than usual. The second is James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, now streaming on HBO Max as of last Friday. What would you like to watch for next week?
Well, I don't have HBO Max. Or did we figure that out? Wait, I do. It worked.
You can watch it on mine.
Yeah. I want to save the Fear Street trilogy to when it's not 90 degrees outside. I feel like that's going to be like a fall special that we can do a little bit more on. So I definitely want to do that because the first one I watched was great. And I still need to catch up on the other two. So Let's just bite the bullet and let's do the Suicide Squad.
Buddy, I already watched it.
Great.
So, here's what I'll say. I think that you will. I'm not going to say you're going to like it or you're going to hate it, but I don't know if you saw the first one. We talked about Justice League on this podcast a lot. It's definitely better than Justice League, and it's definitely better than the first Suicide Squad movie. So
okay, yeah, because the first Suicide Squad movie, and I'm sorry, everybody. I know that like I like superhero movies, I really do, but man, some of these movies are just dumb as hell. They're bad movies. They're bad movies.
It is the worst editing on a film I think I've ever seen. I remember being in theaters for it, and I'll actually lay my cards on the table. I don't like superhero movies. I thought Suicide Squad was dumb, but like kind of fun for being like a bad movie. But it's the first time I can remember being in a theater and characters were getting from like point A to point C. It literally felt like they had cut like 10 to 15 minutes of footage and just left it on and you're like, wait, what? Like, how did they get here? It is like by far the worst editing I think I've seen in a major motion picture. But this is.
You mean the first one? Like the first one, or
the first one?
Oh, okay, yeah, I agree.
The first one. This is sitting, and I'm not going to give my opinion. I'm not going to say that I agree with this, but this is sitting at a cozy like 90% on Rotten Tomatoes right now.
Wow.
It is definitely a step up. So I think we'll have fun. Catch us there for that next week. Again, that is The Suicide Squad streaming on HBO Max. Until then, we're going to have some drinks with our pals in cloaks and wooden masks here. They're all ordering Fernet for some reason. I don't know what's going on, but it's weird. And we'll see you back at the lounge next week. Thanks for watching, guys.
Get the hell out of the damn bar.